Good morning. This is Collaborative Check-ins, and I'm Dr. Lori Baudino, and I'm here with Negeen Farida, and she is an educational specialist at the UCLA Lab School, as well as in private practice working as an ed therapist. And it's exciting because we need you right now more than ever, Negeen. So I'm excited for our families and educators to learn more about your approach and how we can support our kids during this academic experiences.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We've known each other for some time. Tell me about what's been happening with the kids and families you've been working with. What are some of the areas that families are talking about needing support with?
Absolutely. So as you know, with schools closing and all of the learning transitioning to being online, there's been a lot of challenges coming up for a lot of our students, not just academically, but with their confidence as well, socially, emotionally. A lot of students have been feeling, because they're missing out on the curriculum and also missing out seeing their friends, their confidence has decreased. It has transitioned a lot of my goals from working on basic fluency or working on academic goals, but really just helping kids and students feel supported at this time versus increasing the demand like we usually would.
Yeah, that's really important to think about, because as our parents and educators are looking at learning academics, to have the resource such as yourself, like an ed therapist, to come in and really tailor the learning to the child and bring back that confidence, that excitement of having someone with them that's on their team, which they do get, that I think we forget, but they do get by having those peers next to them that they can relate to and see how everyone's handling academics.
Right. And, you know, we try in Zoom sessions to keep it fun and engaging and keep students interacting with each other. Like, one great way is to start with a check-in question, like something fun, maybe tell me your favorite joke, or if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And that gets kids engaged and you get to see their personalities come out, which has been one strategy that has been working pretty well. It's really just about keeping it fun and engaging for the students so they don't feel discouraged and burnt out with all of the different Zoom meetings they have to go to.
You have to keep them really motivated and keep that stimulation going. How do you use movement in the body to incorporate learning?
Definitely. So in a typical school day, kids are not sitting down for 45 minutes on end, and they're not used to sitting in front of a screen. They are moving around the classroom. They are getting their notebooks from their cubbies. They are on the playground. They are playing. So they're not used to sitting in front of the computer. So as much as you can, incorporating movement breaks. So one of the things that I like to do is, well, first, it's really just recognizing at every age there's different stamina, right? So for a second grader, they may not be able to sit down for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but they can sit down for 15 minutes. So as an educator, it's really recognizing, when are my students checking out? What are the signs? Are they disengaging? And then when you're realizing that they're disengaging, transitioning and pivoting your teaching. So one thing that I love to do with my students is I like to do Simon Says. It's really silly and they like to get up and get them moving. You can just give them a 5-minute break where you tell them, go grab some water, go use the restroom, go do 5 jumping jacks, go do lap, and then they come back, they've moved their bodies. And so when you move your body, you're more integrated and you're able to access learning. And it also helps with endorphins and keeping kids positive as well. So games like Simon Says, freeze dance has been really popular. Picking a song and just letting kids dance and then doing freeze dance, and they absolutely love that, and it's been really cute to watch as well.
And parents and educators need to know that these activities are more than just play. So we want to make sure they understand that the simplicity of it and bringing humor and light and play into learning is so important, but you're also learning about cause and effect, problem solving, listening, freezing your body, frustration tolerance. I mean, the list is endless how much you can get out of those activities.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really great to hear that you're using them. I also, in my sessions, I know a lot of times children will want to move around, and you'll hear a lot of parents saying to them, come back, sit still, focus on the teacher, or focus on, for me, like focus on the therapist. And with what you're saying, it's actually giving permission to the children to actually say, go move. And really cueing in on, like, if they start to move, that's what they need to do so that they can come back and increase their attention span.
Right, definitely. So just like you said, just because a student is moving their body doesn't mean they're disengaged. Some people focus better when they are moving. You know, in the classroom, we have fidgets in the classroom. I remember when I was in grad school, I had like a 3-hour lecture and I told my professor, I'm having a really hard time sitting down for 3 hours. And he said, you can stand and pace in the back of the classroom if that's what you need, because some people learn better when they're moving. So it's really about understanding each student and giving them that flexibility and freedom, like you said, because if they feel like they have to sit here and they have to stare at you and they have to stare at the screen, they're going to become disengaged. And that's when you start to see behavior. It's establishing that trust with them as well.
Absolutely. And that attention to sitting still, then that attention's on sitting still versus on what you're saying to them. Right. So we want to make sure the attention is in the directed focus spot that we want it to be. Yeah. So Negeen, how do parents know the difference between whether a child needs a tutor or an ed therapist, and how might they go about finding you or another ed therapist?
Right, that's a great question. So ed therapy is different than tutoring. Usually a student or a parent who seeks out an educational therapist has gone through a neuropsychologist and gotten a report done. So a teacher may have noticed something is a little off, there may be some sort of learning disability. You go and get a report, and if the neuropsychologist recommends ed therapy, then you would go ahead and get services. Usually a lot of the students I see have a specific learning disability. They have dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, ADHD, some have autism. It's more tailored than tutoring, whereas tutoring may just be helping a kid with their homework, which is also very valuable as well. We need tutors as well. This is just a little bit more tailored, and we'll use specific evidence-based interventions that are based in the science to help with students who have learning disabilities. So I provide ed therapy at the Integrated Clinic. We're based on the west side of Los Angeles and Santa Monica. So you can seek services from there, and most of it is referral based. So usually a neuropsychologist or a psychologist will refer you out to a company or organization.
Thank you for telling us about this clinic, and that there are these opportunities for parents and educators to seek out to get that more thorough neuro assessment to understand the individual differences of these children. I'm hearing this word disability and differences often when we're talking about children that learn in their unique way. I was wondering how you feel about it, because you're actually working with the children specifically in these areas.
That's a great question. Just because someone has a diagnosed disability doesn't mean that it's a disability. We like to think of it as a difference. There's a whole movement, community. Neurodiversity is the idea that we all have brain differences, and that these should be valued and cherished, and we should really, as an education system, be finding what students are good at and what they thrive in. And just because someone isn't good in math doesn't mean they're dumb. They could be a wonderful artist, or they could be really good in sports. And there's this idea that Howard Gardner talked about multiple intelligences, that we can't quantify intelligence just by one thing. People are intelligent in different ways. And I really try to approach education with this mindset to really foster what kids are good at, rather than nitpicking what they aren't good at, and embracing these differences. That was something that I experienced growing up as well. Like, I wasn't as good in math, but I was really good at dancing. You know, you could be told in school, if you're not good at math, you're dumb. But, you know, in the dance studio or on stage, that's where I felt really great. So I think it's really about finding what kids are good at, fostering that, and with ed therapy, helping them get the skills that they need to feel more confident in those subjects that they may be struggling in, and helping them realize that it's okay. You know, you're really good at something else, and we're going to help you get through school with this, and I'll give you the skills and strategies you need to help.
Right. And I know that you and I have talked about this before, and those that have listened to me hear my similar story of just that once we know those strengths, we can foster them, that the skills that create that strength, into the areas that we feel are less preferred or might be more challenging, and see the challenge as kind of quite exciting. And so when you're talking about dance, I'm thinking dance has so much math in it, right? So much lines and dimensions and angles and counts and beats and rhythms, and talk about math, right? And so using that strength to say, actually, I'm good at math. And then how do I plug those skills into to when I have to sit down and take a math quiz or answer a math question. So like really understand it. And so that's where I see that ed therapy coming in, because you get to bring in that creativity to help the child.
Yeah, definitely. I think that what you just said is a perfect example of what I do almost every day with my students. I have students who are really, really passionate about soccer, about athletics, and they may hate reading, and, you know, picking books that they're interested in for their summer reading to help them feel engaged. And as an educator, really making sure to know your students, know what they're passionate about, and help them work on those skills through those topics. I had a physics teacher, like you said, who I didn't like physics growing up, and I wasn't very good at it either, but she was like, you know what, ballet is physics. And then I was hooked in and I was engaged, and then I was open to learning, and I was like, this teacher sees me and I'm going to give her a chance now. So I think it's exactly what you're saying. So really connecting with your students, finding what they are passionate about, and making the curriculum relevant to that as well.
That's fantastic. So do you see that during this COVID and new experience of home learning, parents being the teachers, that you might see even more reasons for people seeking out ed therapy?
Definitely. I think that with the uncertainty about schools and not knowing, are we going back to a blended model? Are we not going back at all? Is it going to all be online? For most students, the online learning was a challenge. They've adjusted and they've adapted, but a lot of parents are seeking out ed therapists or tutors, or looking at hiring a teacher in order to compensate for that lost time. Because at the end of the day, a lot of parents are concerned, you know, if you're finishing up 6th grade, you miss this last half of the semester, they lost those foundational skills. What are they going to do now? And then there's high school, and then there's college. So it seems as if the demands are not going to stop, and parents feel the need to seek out extra support. Obviously, that's also an issue of equity and access. Not everyone is able to seek out additional services. Some students may not even have access to a laptop provided by their school. So it really is about making, and that's part of what I'm hoping to try to do, is make education more accessible for everyone. And part of why I wanted to do this with you is to just share out to the community different strategies that we can do to help everyone, because it is a challenging time and we need to stick together as a community as well.
Yeah, I love knowing that there is resources out there, and going from giving that mindset to them of that, you know, look at your child's strengths, give them movement breaks, make it engaging, right? And that there is neuro differences. So if one of your children at home learns one way, it doesn't mean that their sibling has to learn the same.
Right.
Or one day or one time of day. For instance, they might feel like they are focused in the morning, and all of a sudden you're like, what's going on by midday? And so that this is all part of those unique differences that we can celebrate.
Definitely. And I love what we've talked about this before. There are so many things to learn that you don't necessarily need to be in school. Like, you can create different experiences at home. And like, I mean, you can speak more to this too as well, about the different things you've done at home that have really helped your kids learn and have been engaging and not as strict with like a followed curriculum that you might find in school.
Yeah.
If you want to share some of that, I loved when you told me about that as well.
Yeah, I think it's just slowing down and realizing, I know for myself as a parent and now this educator, that it's that slowing down. So I give myself permission that each day could look quite different. And sometimes in the spring, when we were just starting this home learning, it was very structured. And then other weeks it was like, okay, we've done that and we all need to just be outside. And so how can we incorporate whatever we just learned? Maybe we're just talking about it, or maybe we're acting it out, or doing a play, or doing a dance, or playing a sports game. Really just incorporating those ideas. I think I told you we were playing COVID flag football, where we were pretending to steal the toilet paper from one another, but we weren't using real toilet paper. We were just pretending, but really incorporating some of the themes that were relevant to the children and making it fun, right?
And I think what you did too there is beautiful too, because you're actually talking to kids about what is going on right now. And there is a lot of anxiety for our kids. They don't, one day they were in school learning, and the next day they were kicked out. And there is a lot of stuff on the media. So really just having those conversations with your kids about what's going on right now, I think is so important too, like you said, and making it a game in a way that opens up the conversation, at least, so they're understanding what the current situation is.
Yeah. How long are your ed therapy sessions typically?
It depends on the student. I usually do 50 minutes
Okay.
to an hour. If I have a student under the age of 6, I'll usually do like 30 minutes, but if they can't, I'll try to push for an hour. It just depends on their stamina as well, but typically an hour. Some of the high school students are able to do way longer because they're just used to it.
Yep.
But we can get what we need to get done in like 50 minutes to an hour.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. And I know this is the beginning of many more conversations because we're really, we're still in summer, but we're going to keep rolling into the school year. And I do hope that families can seek you out for support. So where can families learn more or reach out to get education support with you?
Definitely. So parents can feel free. My email is my first and last name. So negeenfarida@gmail.com. I also have an Instagram as well on social media. Same, it's at Negeen Farida, where I post different educational tools as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.